finally, let's now talk about the way of the super generalist. Now, contrary to being just a generalist, super generalist actually means you are professionally capable and really good at multiple things, multiple professional domains. So let's just say you are a great software programmer, you excel at being a public speaker, you might be good at graphics design, you might be good at cooking, and you might just be starting out to learn a language. Now, that's the life of a super generalist. Contrary to being a specialist or a dualist, wherein you have chosen focus areas and you excel in those focus areas, super generalists are continuously choosing focus areas. And they're also curious about things that they haven't consciously made an effort to make it a focus area. But if something demands less time and effort to learn, you actually learn it. So let's give you an example. So let's say the Arabic language has 28 characters. A specialist or dualist might question, is this really relevant? Do I really need to learn the Arabic language? The super generalist would go, well, if that's not going to take that much time to learn that many letters, even though I don't know the language, I might be able to at least learn the script and the sounds of it. I'm just going to go ahead and learn just the script if I can't afford the time to learn the entire language. And that's the difference between how a super generalist philosophy is applied to learning versus being a specialist or a dualist. Now, being a super generalist is hard, and if you're not a voracious learner, it can get tiring. It's only for those who are super curious, and you might end up doing multiple formal learning methods. You might have multiple degrees and certificates. You might continuously be learning through informal learning methods, and that is the way of the super generalist. So what are the real benefits? What is all that effort actually going to get you? Well, here are some benefits of being a super generalist. A super generalist is the person who can add maximum value to any situation because they have a breadth of expertise. They're able to make links and connections from the different things that they've learned to a given situation. So they might have bright ideas, they might have better perspectives and ways of approaching a given problem or a situation, and therefore they draw in on their experience and knowledge from multiple domains. Second, if you are a voracious learner, being a specialist or dualist is not going to satisfy you. So you by nature are going to get a kick out of yourself. You're going to be very excited to learn things that you do not know when it might be relevant. Or if there's something that you don't know, you are more excited to learn it just for the sake of learning it. And that's one of the benefits of being a super generalist, is that it satisfies your desire to learn. And lastly, amongst being a specialist or a dualist, super generalists have the better ability to survive any situation, and like they don't risk being obsolete, because if one thing is not that much adding value, they're able to switch to another domain and actually excel. So you're actually mastering the ability to excel even if you're going to switch learning one thing over the other, and you would have varying degrees of expertise. You would be really great at some, you will be okay in a few others, you might be really bad at some things, but by the way, incremental knowledge, even if you become just a little bit good at something, life doesn't demand you to be a master at every single thing. And therefore, being just a beginner in a few things might be super valuable. For example, just knowing a little bit of finance knowledge might make you manage your finances better. You don't have to be an investment wizard, and just knowing a little bit of certain concepts would really help you a lot in your life. And that's a super generalist is likely to get to that level than a specialist and a dualist does outside their focus areas. As with everything, the super generalists also have certain drawbacks. Number one, like I said, if you're not a learner you're not naturally a voracious learner, this can get really stressful and tiring. And so it demands a lot more effort than being a dualist if you're truly a super generalist. Second, it might be efforts in directions that may or may not add value, because like I said, you have a breadth of areas that you're going to learn stuff on, and Some may be more relevant than the others. Some may be relevant at a later time, but you might spend a lot of time learning it right now, so you can't really tell, and then it basically doesn't give you a focus. So therefore you're learning things that are coming on your way, and you should probably be focusing much more on immediate priorities, and it's easy to get distracted if you are a super generalist. It might distract you from your true areas of potential. So if you really are going to be a great dietitian, for example, but you're a curious learner and you're going into fashion design when you probably are not going to be great at it, then it distracts you from really excelling or being a specialist in that area. So if you want to be a super generalist, make sure that you've honed in on a few special area, or you have a primary profession, make sure you're good at it, and then go crazy on learning other things that come your way. And so if you have to be a super generalist, here's a quick checklist to decide if being a super generalist is good for you or not. Firstly, if you're starting out in your career or you haven't yet excelled in a domain, being a super generalist to start out with is really good, because it forces you to try multiple things, and you might then discover an area that you excel at and then might switch on to go to a specialist route. So that's one option. The second option is if you're naturally a voracious learner and you are curious, you're not necessarily looking at turning everything what you're learning into a tangible return on investment for you. You just love learning, and if that is the case, then being a super generalist is good for you. And finally, just like we spoke in the case of a dualist, if you have the time and can manage that time effectively, you have already either excelling in one or two areas, you have a good profession that is giving you value, and beyond that you're able to afford the time and effort, then being a super generalist is good for you. So all three has the specialist, dualist, and the super generalist have their pros and cons. It just gives you a framework for you to choose how you're going to channel your learning efforts.